Welcome, everybody. I'm Sue Landay. I'm from Trainer's Warehouse. And we have today for our show and share, we're joined by Graham Cook from RSVP Design. And he's going to take us through everything colorblind, the team building, leadership, communication tool, and how we can use it. So with that, Graham, I'm going to give the floor to you. I know that's not much of an introduction, but I trust you'll take it from here.
That's fine, Susan. That's better than I normally get when I'm being introduced. So that's good. Thank you. Well, hi everyone. I guess most people I'm speaking to are in the US. As you'll probably gather from this strange accent, I'm not from the US, not calling in from the US. I'm based here in Scotland in the UK.
I think that you've just hung for me. I wonder if this is only me. I haven't had this happen before.
That's fine. I'll just let me know and we'll see how that big cable across the Atlantic hopefully keeps working.
Okay, looks like I'm all set now. I don't know, maybe that was just me. Hopefully it's not everyone.
Okay.
Onward.
Fine. So thank you first of all to Susan for the invitation. We were just talking about how I think Susan and I trade between Trainer's Warehouse and my firm RSVP Design. We've been kind of working together for over 20 years, both sides of the Atlantic, which is great. Today is specifically about one of our products, and it's actually the online version of one of our products called Colourblind. Just a quick kind of thumbs up or wave. Have anyone heard of or used a Colourblind product, either in its physical version or the online version? Anyone aware of it? No? Okay, that's good. Yep, Sarah has, obviously. That's fine. That's perfect. Because sometimes when I'm speaking to people in the UK, a lot of people have heard of it. So let me, just perhaps then put a couple of sentences in terms of context about RSVP Design. So we started in 2003 and we are designers of what we call experiential learning tools, currently called games, gamification, a whole variety of things, I guess, that these activities tools are all about. And generally we've used them and we've been involved in creating and design programs and learning programs around softer skills for that period. And my two colleagues, Jeff Cox and Anne Alder, who started the business with me, were the kind of trainers who loved when they got a request from a client for a new leadership program or a new coaching program or whatever, to design brand new programs with tools. So they had quite a long suite of products that they had developed. And we decided in 2003 really just to concentrate on those two things. We would act as designers alongside companies and organizations, but we would bring these products to market and so that other trainers could use them. And that was our first, obviously, collaboration with Susan and Trainer's Warehouse. And we work pretty much in the physical world with physical games and activities because, in our opinion, if you're developing softer skills, it's much easier to do in the room. It's much easier to get reactions from people. It's much easier to practice different types of behaviors and so on than it is sometimes. And all of that was going great until April, a couple of years ago, April 2020. And the phone stopped ringing and then it started again a week after. And people said, what do we do now we can't use in-room training? How do we use our Colourblind product? And so we started to look at online products. So our journey into the online business is much younger. We've only been doing it really for the last 3 years. So again, just maybe to put into context what this product is all about and what it could be used for, the original design goes back and predates actually this business. So I mentioned my colleague Jeff, and Jeff was working back in the late 90s with the European air traffic control system. And back then in Europe, they were looking to have a centralized European control. And for the first time, we're looking to bring in new air traffic controllers who weren't just interested in aircraft and wouldn't just read flight magazines. So they wanted people from different backgrounds. And they came to Jeff and said, we'd really like you, if you could, to develop a communications game, because we need air traffic controllers in their first week of basic training to really understand the importance of crystal clear communication. So communication is not up for debate between pilots and air traffic controllers, no room for error. And we'd really like to play this. So Jeff created this little game called Colourblind. And we also had a very short conversation with Jeanette at the beginning of this, and I'll come back to the kind of diversity and inclusion aspects around colourblind. And we know that probably about a third of males have some version of colour blindness, so it didn't come from that kind of background. What Jeff designed was a little group game where people would be blindfolded. They were handed out a series of plastic shapes, and they were given a very simple brief once they were blindfolded. As a group, they had to identify the colour and the shape of two missing pieces. So if you think about hearing that brief in the physical world, you're blindfolded. The first question, certainly when I did this, was how on earth am I going to be able to tell colour because I'm blindfolded? And the answer is that if you held up a piece, the facilitator would tell you what colour it was. But after that, you were kind of on your own. And what this game involved was a lot of little iterations of very good quality communication about speaking, checking understanding, checking problem solving and moving forward. So that's what the game kind of was about in the physical world. So when people approached us in April 2020 and said, well, how can we do this? Our first thought was, well, I guess you could send out the physical pieces and you could do a version of it. But we started to explore whether you could actually do it online. And we've always designed products to be, good for trainers to use, hopefully, and but also interesting and fun for the delegates with some strong learning from it. So we started to play about with different versions of this, and I think maybe the best thing would be to try and give you a little bit of an experience of that just now. So
that'd be great. I think we'd love to try it, and I love the air traffic controllers using this. I've always, kind of hung on to onto that piece as just such an interesting dynamic. So yeah, take us through it, Graham.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting, Susan, if you don't come, maybe necessarily from a commercial background, because, Jeff and Anne designed this specifically for air traffic controllers, but then other trainers got to know about it and thought, wait a minute, I know some people that could do with some communication skills upgrading, and I guess that's why it's kind of still in use today.
Yeah.
So the way the online version works is that you need to have access to your email. We'll also use Zoom in order to be able to talk, but I need you to be able to access your email. And what I did before, what I'll do, and I'm going to ask you to kind of think about this as trainers and facilitators, but also as players. So I'm just going to share my screen briefly, just to let you see the platform, and we'll come back to this. So is everyone seeing my screen okay?
Yep.
Yeah. So what normally happens if you're a trainer, and in my experience, is that you're told we're going to run a group. So in Susan's case, she said, I've got 32 people registered for this program tomorrow. So I've got 32 names ready, but clearly 32 never turn up. If you're told it's going to be 10, you might have 9, you might have 11, but you're almost certainly not going to have 10. So you need at the last minute to be able to make some changes, and that's what I'm going to do. So if I don't see your name on this list in terms of the people who are already on the call, I'm just going to remove them. So I don't think Jenny is here. One person I know I don't have the email address for is Nikos. Nikos, would you mind, if you want to take part, just send me your email in the Zoom chat, and I can do that. Laurie isn't here. I can remove Laurie. So what I did is just increase all. Candice is here. Candice, you okay to take part? Yeah. Just give me a thumbs up or wave at me. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Are you okay to take part in this little activity, Candice, if you can get access to your email? I'm not sure if Candice is hearing me. Let me move on just a second. I'll come back. Jeanette, are you okay to take part?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think Scott is here. Let me remove Scott. Let me remove Tris. So this is something you would hopefully, if you do a lot of online training, would be used to using maybe someone who can help you go through this setup and run the technology for you. So it's going to just take me a little bit longer than I would ideally like. Bobby, you okay to take part in this?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Sue, I'm going to
Perfect.
introduce, that's okay. Virginia, Tim. Okay, Anissa isn't here. Rosemary is not here. And Tracy is not here.
Okay. Oh, do we have to go through everybody right now?
I just need to take them off. So just give me a little second.
All right.
So-
Thanks for hanging in there. I think, as you said, Graham, that in a normal circumstance, you'd probably have a better idea going in,
Absolutely.
who's participating. And, as we said, also, once we start viewing the online experience, I think you'll see pretty quickly how it translates to a live in-person event, and having these, the colored pieces right there at your disposal. I'm gonna see if I have a picture of this while Graham is doing that. Okay, so here, while you're doing that, is the picture of this
Thank you.
product in our catalog. And so you can see like all of these different kinds of shapes. And as Graham was saying, normally people are blindfolded, so they do have to ask a facilitator, what color their piece is. So everybody's kind of on the same page with that. All right, Graham, did I buy you enough time there? Are we good?
Yeah, I think that's fine. So let me I need to now, I'm going to add in Nikos.
Okay.
So find it. Nikos, did you send me your email address?
Gonna give us a nod. And it sounds like Candace is trying. So let's use
Okay.
what we've got and move along, just in the interest of time.
Let me just add Nikos in. Very good. Okay, so what the system will now do is going to allocate some shapes to people. I've probably got more than is involved, but I just want to give you an appreciation of it. So if you check your email for me, you should have an email in your inbox from the platform here at experientiallearningtools.com. So just give me a thumbs up if you check your email. It might take a minute or so to come through. Do check your spam email just in case. Got some thumbs up. That's great. So you'll see a button on that to click for a link. So just do that for me. It may ask you if you want to register on the platform, but for the purposes of the demonstration here today, we don't need to do this. So when you click on that link, you should start to see maybe a shape or two on your screen. So again, just give me a little thumbs up if you're getting through as far as that. Okay, Susan's got some, that's good. Okay, so some of you will get the email, you start to see some shapes. I'm just going to give you a sense of this. So if you remember, I said before about the brief for the physical version, and the brief would be exactly the same here. Great, thanks, Bobby. You can see you've got something. So if you can see a shape, that's good. If not, it will come, and I'll share the screen in a second to let you see if you can't see what others. So if you imagine you've got a shape in front of you and the brief is exactly the same. When I started this exercise, I had a complete set of shapes, and I've removed two pieces from that set. And your job as a group is to identify the shape and the color of the pieces that I removed from that set. Okay, and that's the extent of the brief. So those of you who are not used to kind of experiential learning methods would probably be looking for a lot more guidance than this, but this is quite deliberate in the way that we work. So it's a group exercise. It would involve you speaking to each other. So if you want to just open your mics and let me know, particularly if you have a shape in front of you, just give me off the top of your head what you think about what you've got in front of you.
Who'd like
I
to
see
go
it.
first?
White, I'll go. I see a white triangle. I see a red triangle and then kind of an artistic view on a red triangle.
So you have two colors, Bobby? You have a white and red?
Well, I see the red, but there's like as if a cutout, but you could also say that's a white triangle as well.
Okay. I have a shape that's kind of a yellowish goldish, and I wouldn't describe it as a triangle, but maybe if we can figure out like how many different shapes and how many different colors we have.
That's a good suggestion, Susan.
Who else?
Yeah, mine's a blue, like arrow pointing to the left with a circle in the middle.
Okay. Brandon, what do you have?
I did not get an email, but I had to kind of jump off, so I didn't want to disrupt anything. So
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of like Wendy, I'll watch.
Fair enough. Who else has a shape they can describe?
I have a gold shape that's somewhat U-shaped at the top and an inverted triangle at the bottom.
All right.
And I have a red that is kind of a rectangle that has a cutout of a circle in the middle and two triangles on the left and right.
What color is that one, Sarah?
Red.
Okay. Tim, how about you? What do you have?
My shape is green in color. To me, it looks like a teepee that has a little bit sharper cant to the right. It looks like one of the smoke flaps is open, and there is a white triangle in the center of the main body of the teepee.
Ooh. Okay.
That's great. Thank you, Tim. So I'm going to kind of cut across it just now. That is a very typical way that this group exercise would open. So just again, a bit of feedback. So when I said, I started with a set of shapes, were people expecting to get the kind of shapes that you've heard described or you can see on the screen? Or what did you have in mind when I said there's going to be a complete set of shapes? Anyone want to give me a bit of feedback on that?
Oh, and maybe I blew it by showing the picture.
Well, I actually didn't have an expectation. I was just excited and open just to see what would happen.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Bobby. Sometimes people, when they see it, they say, oh no, how on earth am I going to describe that? And I'm going to share the screen so that you can get a sense of what happened in this case. Because I didn't remove all of the participants, we've got more than we would normally see. So on the screen there, hopefully you can see Candace has a shape that some people describe as if it was 180 degrees rotated, this blue one, it might be a man without a head. Someone mentioned something like a TP. I think that was a great description, but I think that's the same shape as Bobby had that said it maybe had a white triangle in the middle. So I think it was Tim using green and Bobby using red. And really that's what this exercise is about. So from that starting position, can you get to a position when you don't share the same visual frame of reference? So Bobby can't see what Tim has, Tim can't see what Bobby has, but how do you come together to speak a common language to be able to describe something that probably neither of you have seen before? And that's the essence of the Colourblind Challenge. How do you move to a point where both of you are 100% confident that you know we may be calling it the teepee, or we're calling it the one with the white triangle. And in kind of 20 years of working with this is a challenge for groups. But when we moved this online, we thought, well, surely it's going to be much easier when people can see the shape. So as Susan was saying there, she was showing people the shape. If you've got a picture of it, it's maybe much easier to understand. But what we found is that when people are working online, you're so focused on the screen in front of you that people tend to view this as being the only way things are. So I think someone mentioned, it might have been Jeanette, talking about an arrowhead that was pointing to the left. If I scroll down a little bit, there's a blue shape in the second one. If I scroll down to, I think this person wasn't here, but you can see there's a yellow or a gold shape where it's pointing to the left, but there is another one where it's pointing in a different direction. We found that if we served these shapes in the digital world, even at 90 degrees, some people thought they were different shapes. But the best bit of learning for us probably entirely, and it goes to something that we were talking about earlier in terms of colourblind. So if you imagine in the physical world, if you have some people who are colourblind, could they still get involved in the colourblind activity? And the answer is yes, because of course they're blindfolded and the facilitator tells you what colour. So if I'm the facilitator and I say, Sue, the piece you have is yellow, the bit what looks a bit like a cloud, or maybe if you turned it upside down, it was paint dripping off a table. If I said to you, Sue, you were blindfolded, you've got a yellow shape in your hand, then yellow it is, and that's not up for debate. But we found in this world, I think someone mentioned they had a gold piece. From my screen resolution and my eyesight, that looks yellow to me. So again, now colour becomes something that's more inconsistent in the digital world, and that made the challenge a bit tougher, even though you could see the shape. There's people trying to identify, and it was one of the questions that Sue said, how many colours do we have? So if we had more time and we had managed to get everyone figured out, what you're trying to do there is to figure out who has the same shape. So there are 30 shapes in total. If I take 2 out, and if you counted all of those amongst you, you would come to 28. There are 28 pieces in total. There are actually only 5 different colours. You may have to decide on what you name that colour, whether it's gold, yellow. We had a lady in one of the early tests, and we were doing this, and I think someone mentioned, Bobby said her shape is red. This lady insisted her shapes were salmon pink, and the group couldn't move to a conclusion because everyone said, well, we only have red shapes, and a lady had salmon pink. But essentially there are 5 colours and 6 shapes. So once you can identify who is the same shape, it's pretty easy then to move to what the colour may be, and then eventually what that shape should be. So that's what the activity is about. We maybe did,
Graham,
5 or 10 minutes
can I
there.
just
Yep.
jump in with
Sure.
a couple of questions, and also invite the group to ask questions as well. But we obviously we have limited time here, and missing people and so missing shapes. How long does it usually take for groups to experience the activity, but then also, how much time then do you typically need to debrief, or how do you think about what to focus on into the debrief and so forth?
Yeah. It's always a difficult thing to do in a demonstration like this, because our view of experiential learning is you need to know the learning you want to extract before you choose the activity. So I will have chosen Colourblind to work with this group because I want to look at this area of behavioural change or learning outcome. So let's say it was about leadership. So one of the things I might choose to look at is, where did leadership come from in this activity? Because leadership isn't given. Anyone can choose to start from a moving the conversation forward. So generally, in terms of time, I would say the more senior the group is, the longer it will take. I can guarantee you, if I do this with a board of directors, it will take twice as long as if I do it with a group of students from the same high school class. And that's partly because the more senior people tend not to listen to each other very often, particularly in a larger group, and particularly in an online forum like this. So it becomes tougher for them.
Too many
But
leaders.
generally, yeah,
Yeah.
too many leaders, but I think more importantly, they just don't listen, and they're not prepared to try out things. They're not prepared to take on suggestions, because this is quite a difficult challenge, and it's designed to be quite a difficult challenge. So people need to typically try different methods till they're able to get it to work. So a highly functioning, very capable team will maybe take 15, 20 minutes. I think the record I've seen this being done from start to finish is maybe about 12 minutes. I've stopped boards of directors after 45 minutes because they're not getting anywhere. They've stopped listening to each other, and there's more to unpack in that review about why they didn't succeed than being able to do it. So that gives you an idea in terms of timing, I think.
And we have a question from Brandon in the chat. How do you accommodate for someone who may be colorblind when you're playing online? I understand that if you're face to face, everyone's asking the facilitator, but do you help them whittle it down, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways to do it. And again, when we're talking about training and learning, we always go back to what is the workplace situation in this case. So if someone is colorblind and having to work online, then it's going to be a really difficult challenge, because a lot of what you do is related to color sometimes. So it depends on the degree of severity of colorblind. The fact is, in something like this, there are going to be different shades depending on your monitor, and different ways in terms of how you'd be able to see it, because we all see color a little bit. So some of it is making that accommodation. If someone can't distinguish between the colors at all, and you as a facilitator could step in and you could help, that's one option. You can make the person an observer, so that they're not actually taking part and take part of the review to do it. So I would tend to say, well, let's take the same view as you would in the workplace. Is there a role people can do towards this task? If they are, then let them do it. If not, find them another task or give them some assistance. So that's how I would approach it.
Okay. Other questions? Feel free to either unmute yourself or write it in the chat.
How many people in participants?
Stephanie, Ashraf, Tim?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a question about participants, but just in terms of numbers. So, I mean, the original list Susan gave me would have been too big. 32 would be far too large a number to deal with colorblind. There are only 30 shapes, so it physically wouldn't be possible. So there's a theoretical limit if you take 2 shapes out of 28. But if you've ever tried to hold the discussion online with 28 different people, it's very tough. So our suggestion is a maximum of 14 participants in a group activity like this. For 2 reasons. One, it's about, it's a typical maximum intact team size. And if it's 14, every person has 2 shapes, so they're involved in the discussion as you go through it all the time. So it's also the type of activity that everyone needs to contribute. So if you're looking at some basic team-based activities, if someone doesn't contribute, this problem can be solved. So it's a way of getting everybody involved in the activity.
Got it. All right.
A final little thing just for those as well who, I know some people said they weren't sure if the email came through to the system. You can also copy the link directly and send it to the people in chat. So that's another option for people who haven't been able to see any of the activity. You can, if for whatever reason, because email does go down sometimes, if you're dealing with people in organizations, you can simply send the link in chat.
Excellent. And Wendy is asking if you've ever used breakout rooms for facilitations. If you have a big group, could you run 2 simultaneously, or is there, what recommendations do you have in terms of breakouts?
Yeah, absolutely. So if if you happen to have a group size, if you really are expecting 30 people, then you would set it up as 2 concurrent sessions of, you know, maybe 15 people. And then, yeah, so they're doing the same exercise. You could have all 30, brief them in plenary, send them out to the breakout rooms for their timer, and then bring them back in. I always think it's good if you've got a couple of groups, because they're having the same experience, but they will very rarely approach it in the same way. And it's always interesting to come back and look at the different approaches. And sometimes the approach that they will take will be dictated in that first few seconds of whoever speaks first or has the first idea. So it's always an interesting thing to review if you've got multiple groups. But yeah, breakout rooms is a way to do it.
Excellent. All right. Well, we're just at the half-hour mark, but Graham and I are happy to stay on for a few minutes. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? Trying to
Would you mind putting the link in the chat? I want to see if I can access it via the chat versus
Sure.
email. Thank you.
So let me
do you want to
that
share your
you.
screen
So
again?
was that Wendy?
Yeah, would
Yeah,
you share
let me
your
share.
screen again just to show her
Yeah.
how you're doing that?
Yeah,
I turned it off for a few minutes.
that's fine. So Wendy, this is you here, yeah? So there's a copy link there. So those, I can see, the other thing I should have mentioned, of course, is this is my facilitator view. So I can see the shapes that everyone has. So as I said, if Wendy said, well, I'm colorblind, I don't know the difference, I could say, well, Wendy, the one on your left is green and the one on the right is blue. So you can just name them as such. So I've copied that link, and let me go back into Zoom now, and I should be able to, we can find chat.
So you'll just chat her a private chat,
Yeah.
right? Or do you want to just share it?
Well, I can do it to
You can do it to
everyone.
everyone.
If you're already logged in, what it will do is log you out. But if let me just send it to everyone, and then that way you should see. So if you click that, that will take you to the platform. You then don't need to log in, just choose as a guest. And when you click on the link, you should see just the 2 shapes that you can see in the screen there. So the other thing that allows me to do is that even though you said, well, we'll start this at 5:05, you know, it means that I can start the activity whenever I'm ready as a facilitator. So if I need to delay it, and then once we end the activity, when I close it off and close it, if you forward that link to someone else, it's not going to show you anything. So are people able to click on it and get a view at least of the shapes? Give me a thumbs up if you didn't, but can see it now.
Wendy, did you have success?
No, the government is blocking it, saying that it is a brokerage site. So, yeah, so that's okay. I just wanted to see if it will work, and ideally it does work. I just can't have access on a government computer.
So you might also be able.
I'm not quite sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sorry. I was just going to say, Wendy. Yeah, I mean, we do have US government departments that use it. Maybe as a technical thing, you would need to get this domain cleared, experientiallearningtools.com. So it's a single domain that needs to be whitelisted. But generally, it's you know, possible to be able to be used, whether you're government or private sector. But maybe there's a block on your particular site.
I suppose you could also just do a little bit more labor intensive, but if you just have 1 or 2 people having problems, you could probably just take a screen snap, a screen, you know, share, not a screen share, just like copy and paste it and send it to their email directly, right? As opposed to accessing it through the website.
You could do that, but you know, it's designed to try and help the facilitator rather than add extra, you know. So if all of the participants were in the same organization, I think that would be a bit laborious. So generally we would say, look, if you get this website cleared, it's a secure website, it's usually not a problem.
Wendy, I was able to access your shapes.
I'm sorry, say that again, Tim.
I was able to access her shapes.
So it did, you're telling Wendy, it did work. If
It
she
did
didn't
work,
have
yeah.
that block.
Right.
Excellent. Well, I know people have a
The
hard
other
time. Oh,
thing
go
that
ahead.
gets confused. No, sorry, Susan. The other thing I was saying is because everyone's got different shapes, it's pretty easy for a facilitator to get confused. So that's why we prefer to let the platform take care of who's issuing which shapes to which people. So yeah, you can do copy and paste, but it's not ideal.
Got it. Got it. All right. Well, Graham and everyone who's been on the call, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's always, as much as we talk about these products or share a well-produced video, there's also just something really rich about experiencing it, being able to ask questions. So Graham, thank you. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.